Marty's back with us. Let's start with John Tortorella. Suspended 2 games and fined $50,000. This is not a $5,000 cross-check to the face fine. 50 grand, for not initially leaving the bench, arguing with officials. Do you agree with this punishment for Torts, or do you think some of the blame, or maybe a lot of the blame for the incident, goes to Wes McCauley, the referee?
Well, listen, Wes McCauley was doing what he's supposed to do, right? He's taking over the game that was 3-0, getting to 4-0 in the first period, and it's going to get ugly. So he's got a younger official. McCauley's reffed over 1,000 games in the NHL. Brendan Schrader has only reffed over 100 games. So, there's a younger official, and he's protecting that official because he had called a penalty on Tampa on Acemont, and then he corrected himself. He said, actually, the penalty's on 23 Philly. And then he gave Hathaway a 10-minute misconduct for just a little shove. So then Philly gets scored, and I think McCauley said, I've had enough. But look, I was watching the Tampa Bay broadcast, and Brian Engblom was showing the 2004 Tampa Bay Lightning team that was in there. That was coached by John Tortorella, and he said, well, in 2004, you had to do a lot more than what Tortorella did to get kicked out of a game. And I'm like, yeah, that's true. Like Pat Burns and Pat Quinn and those guys had to do a ton more to get a game misconduct and a bench minor. I don't think Tortorella did anything wrong. Now, when he didn't want to leave, now that's on Torts, right? You're being told, go to the locker room. He says, no, I'm staying, and you're making a scene. I get that. But as a player, my coach is behind me, and he says, I'm staying. I don't want to leave. I kind of love it. So I'm not blaming anybody. I think that's a very, very harsh fine and suspension. But I kind of like the drama of it all.
It was a crazy scene because you just don't see coaches get ejected in the NHL very often, like you said. Meanwhile, the Wild win in overtime against one of the clubs that they're chasing for a playoff spot, and Coach John Hynes pulls Marc-Andre Fleury in overtime, Marty. Never seen that before. Maybe, the final game of the season or something, but it paid off. What do you make of that gutsy move there by Minnesota?
Well, I think if you're going to be gutsy like that, you do it at the end of the third period. Why? Because you don't want to give the Nashville Predators that extra point in overtime. Now, Nashville already had gotten the extra point, and you're trying to fight for the second point in overtime. But let's remember, Sergei Fedorov did that in the KHL a couple of years back. He was pulling his goalie in overtime to try to get that extra point, and it works sometimes, and then it doesn't work, and you lose that overtime point, right? If Nashville scores an empty net goal, Minnesota goes home with 0 points. Even though they got to overtime, because they pulled their goalie, they would forfeit that loser point that everybody talks about. So now you would have put yourself even behind Nashville that much more. But what it tells me is, number one, Minnesota, is looking at it saying, hey, we only have 6 weeks left. Let's go. Let's push. And two, maybe they're not chasing Nashville. Maybe they're chasing the Vegas Golden Knights, who are in the second wildcard position right now. So it's saying, okay, Nashville got their extra point. We don't care. We want that second point, and we're going to go 4-on-3 in overtime to get it done. So, yeah, gutsy. I don't think it's going to happen regularly in the NHL, but it worked for Minnesota. It would have been really bad if they had gotten an empty net against them and went home with the tail between their legs.
Yes, but a big 2 points for the Wild, and they do still sit 7 points back of Vegas for that final wild card spot. Thanks a lot for this, Marty. Later.